Right. Hello. All right. We're there. There we go. All right. Well, folks, hello. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is Rebecca, your favorite interior designer with Revision Custom Home Design. Tonight, I am kind of doing a continuation of what I was working on, I think yesterday or the day before, where I'm creating some marketing images for a construction partner of mine. I do the designs, he builds them for me, which is awesome. And so we're getting some images that I'm creating to use for his social media and by extension mine as well. So these are images that I created in Chief Architect, which is the drafting software I use now. A lot of 3D capabilities that that program has that I just haven't had the time to teach myself, but I know basic Photoshop. And so for what I'm trying to accomplish here, I think this is going to be pretty cool. Plus, I've already created a couple of these images in Photoshop, and so they kind of have a distinctive look, which is kind of cool, a little bit different than just purely letting it be a computer generated photorealistic type image. So there you go. All right, so what I'm working on right now. So here, what you can see on the screen here is an image straight out of Chief Architect. I've got a few little templates in there. I've got a little bench, some cabinetry templates, washer and dryer, and kind of the basics. So nothing really fancy, but you can see what the space looks like. So I've dragged and dropped my image in. I just need to stretch it out just a little bit so that my weird little border isn't on there. And that you can see, I want to be able to see that door. It's over there on the left. There's this little wall over here on the right that, whatever, doesn't need to be there, but I don't want to cut out too much of the floor space. Just making sure that all kind of fits in. And I think that's where I want that to go. All right, so that is my background image. So now I'm essentially just going to be layering a few things on top. Oh, I don't like how that light, hold on. I don't like how that light is kind of gone. Shrink this down just a little. There we go. Okay, sorry, I wanted to see that. Okay, so anyway, I'm going to be layering images that I found over top this to create a finished image and to create something that's really cool looking. So what I'm going to do is I've already got a bunch of these images saved in file. I'm going to start dragging them in one by one. So part of the reason I wanted that recessed can light to still show is because I have this really cool light fixture here that I want to put up there, and I wanted to have a good reference point and that. So first thing I want to do is get rid of my background. Zoom on in here. I'm going to use my magic wand tool to select as much of this as possible without getting the background, which will save me from having to cut out a bunch of stuff. Because if I were going to trace this with one of the magnetic lasso tools, I'd have to go in and carve out all these little areas. I don't want to have to do that. Okay. Now, the one thing I don't want to do is accidentally etch the white background color. So for this part here in the middle, I'm going to switch over to my magnetic lasso tool and essentially just do a big circle around all this light bulb stuff that I do want to keep in my image. So there you go. So that got all of that. Oh, and one more over here. Just a little hotspot highlight. Okay. So then I just use my layer mask tool once I've done that to essentially hide the background because I don't need that. And then I use Control T to shrinky dink. And I want to make sure that looks kind of scaled appropriately. I think that looks maybe right about there. And we'll play around with it. If I decide I don't like that later, I'll change that. Okay, so that's the first thing. Next up, I want to put a coat hook on the wall behind this bench. So I found this one. Again, I think the magnetic tool will work pretty well for selecting what I want here. All right. Perfect. So I've got everything I need there. Oops, I don't like that it grabbed a little bit of that at the bottom, so I'm going to flip over here to the polygonal lasso tool, use my Alt key to switch into subtract mode, create just a nice smooth line across the bottom, and make sure that I do not have that selected in my image. All right, layer mask time. Sweet. Okay. So I'm going to transform this on down, Shrinky Dink. Now what I want to do is I want this to be scaled as if it were hanging directly over this bench. So I'm going to first, and Shrinky Dink, and actually I'm going to use the back edge as a reference. I'm going to imagine where this line comes back here. Actually, probably a little bit less than, right about there. Oops. Grabbed the wrong thing. Okay. There's that. So the size is about right. I want to make sure the height is correct. So I want to make sure I keep it just a little bit lower than the top of this door over here. And then I need to make it match with kind of the perspective of the room. So I'm going to use one of the transform tools, skew. See how that slowly moves the whole thing. And I don't need it to match exactly that, because if you've studied perspective in art and drawing classes, that you got to find your vanishing point far away, and there's kind of a scaling to it. So I'm trying to actually kind of line it up with this curtain rod here. To be a little more. Okay, I'd say that looks pretty good. So there we've got some coat hooks. And if we imagine that line coming down, you'll see that we did safely stay within the edge of this countertop. So the one I do actually want to make it just a smidgen bigger. I feel like that's an imaginary line there. Okay, I think that did it. Okay. So then, I did. I've got some shirts that I want to hang on this rod up here. So for this, I'm going to use magnetic lasso tool to start with. Just chase my perimeter. Oops. Fix that. And I did this last night. I put these same shirts in another image that I was working on. And that's on the one hand, I want the houses to look different, but on the other hand, I want there to be some visual similarities between them, so that when people look at it, if they're following this person on social media, they'll be like, oh yeah, that's an image by so-and-so. And it actually helps to create some kind of brand identity a little bit. So there is kind of a method behind that, not just, I found this image and I'm going to use it 73 times. All right. I'm gonna that. But now I do want to add this in, so I've let go of my Alt hotkey and I'm that, and then again I want to, oops, doesn't want to follow that, so I'm going to have to manually go do just a little tiny series of clicks and essentially force the tool to recognize the borders that you, there we go. And a couple little bits of the collar over here, so there we go. I'm just kind of forcing it to see where that collar goes up. And now last but not least is the hanger. I'm going to add these in. And I'm not getting, you'll notice this little nub here at the back, because the diameter of this rod is different than the diameter of the rod that I'm working on in my image. So it's better just not have it. No one will notice that that part's missing, and to have it show up and be weird. The brain will automatically ignore certain things if it doesn't make sense. Okay. And I missed a little bit right there. And of course, it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, but I like it to be as close as possible because why go through the trouble of making it almost perfect? All right, so layer mask. Control T is my transform, or what I call my shrinky dink. Okay. Now I'm going to have to distort this just a little bit because I want to get the scale right. So I need them to hang down long enough that they would be fairly realistic. But now I'm going to go into my transform tools. First thing I'm going to do is the distort because I need to make this narrower. Not by a ton because I want it to be fake, but definitely narrower. Maybe just a smidgen taller. And then now I go into skew. And I want to make sure that the top edge of those hangers line up properly. I drag that down on this side. Lift that up just a little bit on that side. Scooch that over. I don't quite like how long those are, so I'm going to distort those just a smidgen shorter, actually. There, I think that looks a little more realistic, and maybe like that. Now, the other thing you'll notice is that those are really crisp, bright, vibrant white, and the background is a little bit more muted. So although it's a realistic image, I'm going to go into my hue and contrast, adjust, or hue and saturation, I'm sorry. I'm going to drop my lightness by just a little bit. And I like it with the saturation down just a little bit too. It doesn't really matter that those shirts are pink and blue and all that. It just matters that they're button down shirts. And I'm going to actually do the same thing with that light fixture because you'll notice how that light fixture seems really, really bright up there. So again, image, adjustments, hue, and saturation. Just going to drop my lightness just a little bit. Not a ton, but now you see how that wood tone matches those hangers really nicely. Okay, got that, we've got that. Next, I'm going to bring in just a little decorative laundry detergent container that'll sit up on top of washer and dryer. Okay, now here I don't want to accidentally get the background color, so hang on a second. I'm going to zoom in, and then I'm going to switch over to my magnetic lasso tool, and I'm just going to draw a big circle around this because the word laundry is the same color as the background. There we go. All right. Layer mask, shrinky dink. And again, I used this image in another one of the marketing images for this company. So it looks kind of similar. Can't go across that wall there. This one I'm going to play around with just a little bit. I want to play with perspective just a tiny bit. There we go. Just so it doesn't look 100% square. Gonna maybe there we go. All right. And again, oops. Just the tiniest little bit of hue and saturation. There we go. There. So minute details, but the details are the details. All right. So next, let's see what I got here. Okay, so next I had a little potted plant. I'm trying to remember if this was the best way last time or polygonal. Oh, don't do that. Okay, so then again, just kind of my little touch up with my magnetic, my magnetic lasso tool. I just don't want any of the wall poking through. So you see how that got rid of all those little spots in the middle. Okay, and I also don't want this shadow along the bottom. I'm gonna use my Alt hotkey, trace that, and get that out of there. Okay. Layer mask, Control T to shrink ink. This is just a real little ant. So it's either gonna go right there, or maybe over here on top of the dryer. We'll see. Okay, so now we've got this kind of those wicker basket fronts, but I feel like it needs some shoes or something to look realistic. So I'm gonna see if I can find. Whenever I'm looking for just kind of generic images like this, I'll go to Google image search. And I'll just type in looking for whatever it is that I'm looking for, and either look for a stock photo or a manufacturer's photo that I can use without worrying about copyright. Just trying to look for. I'm sorry. Oh, here we go. Here's some that look kind of Montana-ish. Because that's the other thing is I'm making these marketing images um, for a client here in Montana, and so obviously it would make sense that these images should appeal to someone living in Montana. Okay, so first I'm going to, and there's actually two pairs of shoes here, but I'm going to start with this one. I'll come back and fix those edges here. Okay. Get a straight line there. Straight-ish, I guess. That goes over. So all those little nooks and crannies, and again, come back here. Add that, so I let go of my hotkey. Acting. And I would say that's pretty good look. Okay, so we're going to layer mask. Dinky dink. And again, we're trying to figure out a decent, oh, too much. They need to be scaled appropriately. For the image. So if they're going to sit on the floor over here, see, right about there is probably about right. And then I'm going to bring that image again because there were actually two pairs of shoes in that. So again, use my magnetic lasso tool. Okay. Sometimes you really have to kind of force it there. You do lots of little tiny clicks to get the line you want. Now here we need to add, so I let go of my hotkey and I'm that's a weird one. Hold on. Just subtracting all this background I don't want. I'm gonna put these on the shelf, so I need to nothing weird looking sticking out. Okay, so now here it missed a section of the shoelace. I need to take that out. Just kind of going around and just adding and taking away, adding and taking. I know that there's here, so I'm gonna just catch. Okay. Just following that curve. There we go. I think that looks pretty good. Okay, so now I'm gonna layer mask, Alt T. And again, trying to get the scale about right. So these are ladies' shoe, it looks like. So they're a little smaller than a men's shoe. They need to look like they fit within this cubby naturally. They need to be just a little smaller. Okay, so now the other thing is you can see obviously there's a big highlight on those, which obviously if they're in a cubby, there's not going to be that highlight. So I need to do my hue and saturation. Drop them down so they're darker. Maybe even drop the saturation just a little bit. And then the same thing with the other shoes that are right there. Hue and saturation. Again, drop the lightness just a little bit. Saturation and not. Okay, so now I guess those one shoes look a little out of, like these ones right here aren't perfect, but in the grand scheme of thing, I think they might end up looking pretty nice. I think there needs to be just a little more shadow on the base of that. So I'm going to do a little trick. Okay, hold on, I need to go to the right layer. I go to the back layer here, and then I use the polygonal tool. I'm going to catch right here. So that's essentially the bottom of that shelf. So I'm going to go up to layer, new adjustment layer, and as always, hue and saturation. I'm going to label this as shoe bench. Just so if I ever have to go back to that layer here in a minute, I know what I'm doing. All I'm going to do here is drop the lightness. You see how that makes a little bit of a shadow look down there? I think that helps a lot. So now if we zoom out, see how the base of that looks more shadowed and dark? I think that's good. Still think those boots, however, maybe need to be just a little more shadowed. There we go. All right, cool. Know that I like that cushion fabric, and again, I didn't really find anything in advance. I didn't look for a replacement for that, but let's see what I can find now real quick. I'm just looking on my Google image search trying to find a bench cushion that A is a fabric that I like, that I think will look good there, and B is at an angle that I think is appropriate for that space. Okay, so I found one that I think will work. Go ahead and pull that in here in just a second. Okay, so you can see that's a bench cushion. It's pretty close to what we've got here, and it even wraps the edge. So I'm going to bring that on over here. I'm going to do a couple things real quick. I'm going to drop the opacity a little bit, and that allows me to see what's behind it. Okay, so first I'm going to bring it over here. Obviously, I need to shrink it down quite a ways. So there, we're getting pretty close to the size it needs to be. So now I'm going to zoom in. And then what I'm going to do, I still need to make the opacity a little. Okay, now I'm going to go to transform and skew, because I need to drag this left edge down like this. So the first thing I'm trying to do is to get my edges to line up with the existing cushion. So if I drop my opacity even more, there you can see how that's working. Okay, and then using the transform tool, I'm going to shrink it down just a little bit more. There we go. And I'm going to move it down so that the edge lines up. So now I want to compress this down a little bit, so I'm going to use the distort. Hopefully that'll do what I want. I'm going to grab this top edge. Okay. Now that messed with my line quite a bit, but I can fix that. There we go. So now I think I've got the stripe pretty close to where I want it. Ooh, that's even better. See how it's wrapping the front edge of that cushion? That's awesome. See, if you play around with things long enough. There we go. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my polygonal lasso tool to carve out what I want. I'm going to come across the front edge of this bench. I'm just tracing what's in the background there. And this is where my cabinet hardware is. So down. Perfect. Now I do my layer mask. Bring my opacity up. Look at how cool that is. Oh my goodness. And now I can drop my opacity a little bit, which will soften that texture pattern. And then I will also, you guessed it, hue and saturation. Saturation just a tiny bit. And the opacity kind of has a similar effect, as long as there's nothing crazy in the background. There we go. Look at how cool that turned out. And that, again, it's something that appeals to Montanans. It's a look that is understood and appreciated. And it looks more realistic than the computer generated little basket we've had and that was there before. Okay. So now, let's see here. I also have a rug we could bring in and try and see if this works. And now again, I'll have to play with the perspective tool to get this to lay right. But first thing I want to get my border off of here. Or background, I guess. My layer mask. Shrink it down some. And then I'm going to go to edit, form, perspective. And this can get really trippy depending on what you end up doing with it. So there we go. Oh. First you gotta hiccup there. All right. Oh, excuse me. Now we need to rotate this. Nope, we don't need to rotate that. We need to, let's try distort. There we go. Okay, so we're getting close. All right. And so we're just stretching this so that A, it looks good in perspective, and B, it fills the space the way we need it to. So now the one thing I noticed is those boots will need to be brought up because right now they are under the rug. There we go. So now the boots are on top of the rug. There we go. That softens up that floor, which is really nice. Although I think maybe we'll move it just a little ways away from that, because if you see where the door is, when you came into the room, you wouldn't want an edge of a runner to be halfway in the middle. You'd want it to be kind of like that. There we go. So it's still nice and soft. It still is visible, but you can't tell that it ends right there. Okay. And then a couple other little things. First, I have this little ivy. I want to put up top here. Okay. Zoom in up there. There we go. That's what. Okay. Now I like that the leaves are overlapping. That's pretty realistic. But I need to trim that. So I'm just going to use the polygon lasso tool. I'm going to follow the line of that shell. Come around here and make sure I get all of that up here. If I layer mask it, that little piece goes bye-bye. Sweet. And then again, as with all bright and shiny things, adjust that saturation, that lightness. Yeah, I'm going to drop that one kind of. There we go. Okay. And then last but not least, or I guess we're getting close to the end, I picked some artwork. Now this one I was a little bit torn because I have two different images. So maybe if anyone's watching, tell me if you have a preference. Go ahead and drag the first one in. On the one hand, this first image kind of screams Montana to me. I mean, it's definitely more mountainous than the eastern part of the state, but it's still a really cool image. And it's subtle, it's a very subtle nod to Laundry Day. So we're going to go ahead and get rid of the background. Layer mask. Drinky dink. Okay. So I've got to skew and distort that and figure out how, if I want that to be the image that's on that wall. But the other one that I picked, this one. And again, it's a subtle nod to Laundry Day. The fact that we're in a laundry room. But it also has the kind of turquoisey colors that we've been using sort of as an accent within this space. So anyone has a preference, let me know. Otherwise, I don't know. I think I will go with the mountain one. I mean, I love this other one here, but I'm going to pull that out of there. So now what I need to do is get this positioned so it looks like it's on that wall. So I'm going to go to transform. Distort is going to get me a little bit of the side to side that I need because in perspective, and actually some of this is going to be behind this cabinet. So I need to kind of picture this line up here. That looks like it's on that wall. So I'm going to go to transform, distort is going to get me a little bit of the side to side that I need because in perspective, and actually some of this is going to be behind this cabinet. So I need to kind of picture this line up here. So I need to kind of picture this line up here. So I need to kind of picture this line up here. So I need to kind of picture this line up here. So I need to kind of picture this line up here. So I need to kind of picture this line up here. So I need to kind of picture this line up here. So I need to kind of picture this line up here. So I need to kind of picture this line up here. So I need to kind of picture this line up here. So I need to kind of picture this line up here. So I need to kind of picture this line up here. So I need to kind of picture this line up here. So I need to kind of picture this line up here. So I need to kind of picture this line up here. So I need to kind of picture this line up here. So I need to kind of picture this line up here. So I need to kind of picture this line up here. So I need to kind of picture this line up here. So I need to kind of picture this line up here There we go. And then I'm going to use the skew to get my top and bottom edge to look like they're in perspective. And again, I'm kind of looking at this cabinet line here and this backsplash line right there. I think that's looking pretty good. Ooh, unfortunately, what did I do? Hold on. I already did a layer mask, so if I delete the layer mask, that gives me my background back, but that gives me the ability to go in here real quick and make sure that my cabinet is cutting away. So now, drop my opacity down. Okay, so I'm going to use my polygonal lasso tool, the one word I cannot say fast. Start here. I'm going to come on down to the corner of this cabinet. Over here to where my frame, oops, a little too far. Start over. I need to zoom in here actually so I can see what I'm doing. Okay, so right at the top of the frame, down to the cabinet. Frame. Now, if this was a really elaborate tracing job that I had done earlier, it would not have been fun to undo that layer mask and start over. But fortunately, that's all that was. So, layer mask, opacity back up to 100%. So there you can see that. Now, although it is a photographic piece of artwork, I don't want it to look so much brighter again than the entire rest of the image. So I'm going to go to image. And see if this does any, makes it a little. Drop the saturation a little. Kind of like higher saturation. I don't know. And then I think what I'm also going to do is, if I can remember, hold on, I got to look at my menus here. Filter. So there, that gave it the look of oil paint, which I don't know. I'm not hugely digging. That's not too. Um, ooh, there we go. Oh, I kind of like that. Okay. So now it looks like a piece of artwork, not quite as much of a photograph, which makes that transition a little bit less jarring. And then I think the only thing that I need to add is a stack of towels on top of the dryer here. And in the other image, I used the white and the gray. I think in this one, I'm just going to use the gray. Do magnetic. Trace this. Then I definitely want to make sure I get a nice clean edge on this one. It would be really jarring if you saw little bits of brown in these towels when there's really nothing out in the background. Here we go. That edge smoother. All right, so I think that's it. So we're going to layer mask that and do a little shrinky dink. Just trying to get the scale about right. And this one's got light coming from that way, and I think the light's actually going to be most likely be coming from the other way, so I'm going to do a quick little... There we go. That looks more realistic with the shadows that we've got. And last but not least, I am going to So, oh, you should probably have like a coat or something hanging over here because that would look... Let's see. Let's find a coat hanging on a... So actually, that wood coat rack could be kind of cool looking. So maybe I'll use this instead of that other one that's there. Switch over to magnetic. Just tracing the perimeter of this with my magnetic lasso tool. There we go. And I just got a little more to do here. Not wanting to catch that. Then I want to delete this little section. And add in this little bit. And oh, looks like this edge. Sharper. There we go. Okay. There we go. I'd say that looks pretty good. We're gonna layer mask that. I'm gonna first I'm gonna get this adjusted to the right size, and then I'll delete the other one. Okay, so first we gotta get the size about right. I'm actually going to reverse this because again we were talking about light sources. There we go. And that's actually crazy close. I think I just need to do a little bit of distort here just to get the right length to things. Okay, so there I did that, and then I'm just going to do a basic transform, get the size up where I want. I feel like those cardigans need to hang a little lower. Okay. Now let me see if I can find hot coat hooks. There we go. And there's a weird little, I don't like that light source, but let's see what it looks like back the other direction. Oh, wrong item. No, that does not look good. But maybe if we lower the saturation. Oh, there we go. Actually up the saturation a little bit, but brought the lightness down. Okay. Yay! All right, so for laundry room slash mudroom, I think that's actually pretty good. Um, more than likely there'd be a light switch or a hook for keys or something, but I don't really want to clutter this image up. I've already got some beautiful art. I kind of like that, a little bit less cluttered there. All right. So now one of the last steps that I do um, is a quick little watermark. Now I am making this for someone else, but um, with being shared on social media and all that, gotta protect your work. And this will be a little bit lighter here in just a second. I always try to put it in some place where it's visible but not obnoxious, like doesn't detract from the design. Like I said, it's just for when it goes on social media, um, that way no one can come in and try and claim it later. I'm just dropping the opacity on that. So there you go. So it's there. It's really subtle. You don't really notice it. But if anyone were to ever try and claim this as their own, I could point to that and say, nope. Alrighty. Well, I think that is it for now. Folks, I really do appreciate you tuning in. If you liked what you saw, please go ahead and hit subscribe, like, comment, all that good stuff. Share this video with your friends, and I do hope you come on back and watch more of my videos. Have a wonderful